Hello again. This video is for the service EFE, or Engineers Foundation Evaluation. And this video will have a series, I think 3 videos associated with the EFE, because it is our most complicated service that we offer. It by far exceeds in value every other service, I think. And so there's kind of this self-worth about learning how to do this, providing your clients with this service, and understanding some of the odd situations that go into an EFE. EFEs are pretty easy and common if you go into an easy and common home. If you go into a home with multiple foundations, sunken living rooms, duplexes, things can get a little complicated. And so we have a special video on what to do in those cases. But this video will focus on just our app, getting the information, elevation information that we need from you, from the field, put into the right format in our app, doing it the right way. And so we can kind of train you on how to handle getting us the elevations in the right way. The EFE is, let's go into the actual template. So I'm just going to share my screen for a majority of this video and show you our EFE template through our web portal. So Noble has 3 different ways to access the same kind of portal. We have our web app, our Apple, iOS, iPhone app, and our Android app. I'm going to be showing you the web portal because it is just so much easier to show you on this kind of video system than to try to record my phone or have something recording my phone on the screen while I'm talking. This app doesn't have an active camera button mainly, and this app does not work without internet. So it's going to load a little bit slower, but you don't want to use it in the field, because if you use it in the field, you may take a bunch of photos, hit go, and if you don't have internet, you sometimes can lose information. So this portal is great for showing you this, but it's really meant for the administration team. If y'all do scheduling through an admin, like setting up this project, in this portal before you go out in the field for your team, then you would use this version of our app. But I'm going to use it to show you what kind of you would do in the field, even though I'm not in the field. I'm going to start by clicking add and typing in an address. Just use my address here and click create project. You only need the address. Like we showed in a previous video, you only need the address to set up a project. It will assign a project number based on that information, that address that you give it. And then you can tie multiple services to that property if you want. In this case, we're only going to be looking at the EFE, the Engineers Foundation Evaluation, and what that looks like. In the previous videos, we went over what a sample report looks like for the client side. And so and how to sell these EFEs. And so the focus of today is not how to sell them or what they look like, but mainly how to gather the data. The EFE will pop up here as an active service that you've added. You'll see the inspection date here and the price. One note on price is you're a client, you're not a customer. So if the price is wrong, or if we agree to something different, don't let that hold you from continuing, because we'll fix it in the back end later if there's some other thing that we agree to. And in fact, at the bottom here, you'll see notes. You can even write a note to us saying what you said, so that there's just not an issue with price. We don't let you change it, but right here. But if there's an issue with the price loading, then don't worry about that. There's 2 other sections for EFE. There's the report section and the support document section. Support documents are super important to gathering information for an EFE, and we really don't want you to take that lightly. It's possible for you to just give us our own report and that be all that you give us, and that's fine. That is, most of the time that's the case, or actually most of the time with partners, you will give us this report and a property inspection report for the visual condition information. Visual condition information, we don't want you to have to replicate in our software if you're already out in the field doing the work. So if you're already gathering whether the doors don't align and there's tile cracks and there's a foundation crack in the garage and all of this, what we consider visual clues or visual condition information. If you're already gathering that, then we just want you to attach your inspection report, whether it's Spectora or Home Gauge or whatever it is. You're going to download it and attach it here to complete this service and put it into our bucket for processing. If you want to complete, if it's a standalone service, you're out there to just perform an EFE and you're not there to do a home inspection report, it may be easier to do the visual condition information, provide that in our app, and we allow you to do that, and I'll show you how to do that. Other, real quick on support documents, other examples of support documents that we would want is if you have the floor plan, we want to have that. If you know the seller's disclosure form has foundation information in it, then we would like you to provide that to us. If there is a foundation work documentation that was done previously sitting on the kitchen countertop, we want you to snap a photo of that and attach it here. And also bid information from foundation work that has, that they're likely to do. We want to see that. I spend a little more time than I probably need to on support documents, but it's been probably one of the more frustrating elements of doing an EFE, because I can get through an entire EFE project. You can give me elevations and visual clues and everything. But if then the client, and I give the report to the client, and then the client goes, oh yeah, there was a whole foundation job done on it and there was no clues in the field that the foundation had been worked on, then I have to revise my entire conclusion, oftentimes go back to the drawing board and start the report over. And we don't like doing that, because we're juggling conclusion statements. Then we want to be firm and precise on what we conclude, and that means that I need your help in gathering all the information about this property before you provide me with the all go green light ready to process the information that we have. Again, a good way to do this is to ask the seller's agent if they're there, ask the seller if they're there, look around the property for not in drawers or anything, but make sure they haven't left something on the kitchen counter, and ask the client if there is any history of foundation work on the seller's disclosure form. Just be very forward with the fact that you are there to do a foundation assessment and you need all of the historic facts. If you click into the report section, you'll see the first project details section. We'll click on that. I am not going to fill out all the information, just because a lot of this is stuff and there's not it's not worth going through and filling it all out just for the sake of doing that. So you obviously know, fill out the client name, agent name, and your inspector. You're the inspector, your name. Who was there when you were at the home, the year, the square foot, building type is typically single family attached. If the garage is detached, we want to know that it's not with the home. So that's one thing there. A lot of homes are traditional in style, and then we want to know if it's furnished, vacant, or new build, etc. Weather conditions, outdoor temperature, and then foundation. Foundation, we will spend a little time on because of second foundation type. If you're at the home and you're at it's a slab home, but it's got a master bedroom that's pier and beam off the back, that's two different foundations, and we need to know about that. A second foundation is separate and acts independently of the first foundation because there is a clear divisor or division line. And there could be two slabs. Sometimes you don't know and sometimes you do know. And if you know, we want you to let us know so that we are going to treat those two slabs, or those two foundation types, completely independent of one another, and we're not tying them together. If we tie them together, then it means that the topography is all one, that the tilt and deflection calculations are all one. And oftentimes other foundation types are on completely different elevations by a few inches. You may step up or down into a different foundation type in a home. We need to know that. It's not another foundation type to have a second living room. Most garages are not are not second foundation types unless they're separate. and even step downs, like a step down in the garage or the sloped garage flooring out to the door. That's not a second foundation type. Those are not poured independently of one another. They're all monolithic. They're tied together. And so we need you to make sure or to verify. You may even have to ask the buyer, are there different foundations here, or is this all one foundation as you know it? The most common, I'll just show you, is slab on grade with a pier and beam off the back, something like that. And it is going to then ask you what rooms are part of the second foundation. If it's a master bedroom, then you're going to type other, and you're going to type master bedroom, and you're going to add that to the second foundation rooms so that we on our floor plan can really pinpoint where the second foundation type is and what rooms are there. So just make sure and be very clear with this question. If you get a second foundation type, it will ask you for a third. That's much less common, but if you need to put in a third foundation type, you can put that there, and it will ask you the same room question. And then the interview. So we ask that you let us know if you were able to talk with the owner or the occupant. If they're not available for discussion, then put that. If that you did talk to them and they didn't know anything, then you would indicate to us that they're unaware of any previous foundation work. Or you did talk to them and they gave you documents. And so read those options and make sure that you're giving us the best information available for kind of this brief interview. It's part of our process of just making sure that we kind of cover all of our bases. If I click back, then I will go into the structural systems with the first question being, are you going to provide us the visual condition information here in the app, or are you going to give it to us as part of a property inspection report form? The most common answer is provided in the property inspection report, in which you will then just attach the property inspection report, and then you don't have to do the condition assessment in our app. If it's a standalone EFE, a lot of our partners prefer to just do it in the app, because then you're not juggling between two different softwares and two different reports. And then you would hit completed here. If you hit completed here, it's going to open up this section that allows you to answer these questions. One note is you won't see electrical or plumbing or HVAC. This isn't a home inspection. These specific sections are for foundation components only. And if they're not foundation related, you're not going to find them here. A good example of an overlap is like a loose doorknob. A loose doorknob has nothing to do with foundation. And so if you go into the doors section, you're not going to see in the deficiencies a loose doorknob. You'll see door doesn't latch, door rubs and sticks, doors had noticeable gaps. These are all indicators of a potential foundation problem. And so that's kind of how these sections are outlined. So they're not that long, and you will get used to where they land with all the foundation components. But the foundation section is probably the largest, and it does ask 3 different types of information. One is kind of informational stuff, one is limitations, and then one is deficiencies. So with information, it's going to ask you, hey, I need to know information, just general information about this foundation. And then it will ask you, all right, these are specific limitations to that potential category, and we want you to make sure that you give us the limitations to cover us in the event that you can't discover something because it's been covered up, or because there's furnishings, or whatever it may be. Deficiency list is the most lengthy for foundation, because there are probably the most applicable foundation deficiencies in the section for foundation. So you need to look through these and kind of, not memorize them, but know where they are, know the outline of where these visuals are there. In the other category, we have non-foundation related cracking. So like cracking on the driveway, and shrink cracking, and it's kind of cracking that is, so just get familiar with the other category. And then we have basements and crawl spaces, which are not on every home. And so, like if we go into crawl spaces, it's going to ask you what kind of piers you're seeing. the limitations associated with the crawl space if you can't access it all, and then pier and beam specific related deficiencies. So just make sure you're getting all of the deficiencies logged in here, and then we'll move on to the elevation plot, which is the meat of our of what we need of our evaluation. I am not in elevation plot. I'm not going to go over some of the oddities, complexities. That will be for the next video. I am going to just generally give you an idea of how this works, go over some examples. We will at some point, I think even in the next couple weeks, we're going to have a live demonstration of how to use this actually in the field so that you can see it kind of live, see some of the odd situations. But for now, the web app version is what I'm going to provide you with, just to go into kind of just basically how a normal home would, how a very standard home would be put into our app. Base station. The very first question is base station. Base station is something to talk about. Here's a zip level. A zip level, you know, even if you're using a smart level, a smart level or a zip level, they have the reel component and then they have the puck component. And so the reel is not the base station. The puck is not the base station, but the puck is what you use to zero out the point in which you're going to be taking the base station location. A good rule of thumb is you put the reel in the center of the home, because the reel is the place in which you would be able to access everything from. If you put the reel on the far right side of the home, then you may not be able to access the far left side with a 50-foot reel. So 75-foot, whatever you have. So the good rule of thumb is that you put the reel more in the center of the home, and the reel really has nothing to do with the base station, the zeroing out of the location of where we put that. It is just in a central location. You are going to want to pull all your cord out. Pulling your cord out mid zip level survey will result in changes to the elevations. You cannot roll your cord out to only 20 feet, take a bunch of measurements, and then run across the home reeling out another 30 feet. It will change your measurements. So what I do is I put the reel down, I pull all the cord out, or at least enough to know that I'm really, really safe on everything I'm going to do, because I will have to start over if I have to pull more cord out. I will then take the puck to a location that is most common for a base station, which is usually the entry door or the back door or like a hallway door. The goal in this case for the base station is to put the puck in a location that can be replicated very easily. If you locate your reel in the middle of the living room, and let's say it's a vacant home and it's a huge living room, and then you zero out your puck right next to the reel, which is fine, you can do that. But if you do that, putting the puck and finding where that puck was sitting before is going to be very difficult for the next person that comes into that home and needs to replicate the zip level next year or in 5 years. You want to put the puck by the front door, because usually that's really easy for someone to see. Oh, they put it by the front door and that's where they zeroed it out. Again, if you put it in an expansive room, then us locating it on the floor plan or locating it in the future is going to be difficult. So don't do that. So with the base station, we're going to go into the base station section. And here you'll notice that it asks for the location of that base station. In this case, we're going to just say the entry, and then we are going to add the base station measurements. Every single measurement in this app, in this template, has a measurement photo and a location photo. The measurement photo is the actual photo of the puck. We do not want you typing in the measurements, because we want to physically see the puck and we want to see the measurement on the screen. So you're going to then set your base station by the front door. You will then go over to the puck, take a picture of it at 0, and then you're going to back up and take a general location photo. Let's see what that looks like here. This is actually a Spectora report, so I don't want you to look at the report format and think this is what we're going to get. I just want to focus on the images here, just because this is a good example of some changes in flooring types and things like that. So this is a good example here. You got a base station location right here in the living room area. No problem with that. They chose a puck location right here. Not the best location, but not a poor location, but it does look like we can locate it in front of this column and this, third tile. Fine. And then they took a picture of it zeroed out to kind of prove that it was zeroed. Good example of two photos there that show clearly what we're going to be adding. You'll notice that there's not two buttons on this version of the app because I'm on a computer. On your phone, you'll see two buttons. One will have a clear photo icon. You'll click the photo icon. You'll take a picture of the measurement. You'll click the photo icon. You'll step back, zoom out, take a picture of the location. And if you have any notes for this base station location, we want you to add them here. After you're done with that, you're going to click back and you'll go into the actual rooms. The rooms, there's no rhyme or reason necessarily. They are kind of oriented in a way that would be a kind of a common workflow, starting with the entry. But you'll notice that there is how many points we need in that room listed below that room. That is only a guide. That is not a restriction or a specific count that we need. The entry on a normal home, 2 points sounds normal. For a living room, 6 points sounds about right and sounds normal. The goal being, and I will actually go into this in the next video, but the goal being to provide us with a grid of points that's fairly consistent. A 20-foot grid on a home, 20 to 30 points on a normal size 2,000 square foot home is about right. And if you count all these points in the common rooms that we find in a home, you'll notice that it adds up to 20 or 30 points. So the goal is to kind of get a grid and to establish kind of an art to getting these points, because I'm not in the field and I don't know when a certain room should have more points or not. I mean, I know, but you're going to have to know and start to figure out how and when to take more points. If you walk into a grand cathedral entry room that's got a giant cathedral staircase, 2 points ain't going to cut it. And so we need you to know at that point that I probably should be taking more points. Let's go into one of these rooms, entry, and you'll see the unlike base station, it's a little different, but every measurement looks the same. This is the entry measurement and how you take the measurement in the entry room. You'll see that there are 2 points, middle of the entry door and middle of the room. So for a common entryway, we want you to take the front door, middle of the entry door, and we want you to take the middle of the room. Again, if this is a grand cathedral area and you've got a fireplace right on the side of the entry, something that's really heavy on the foundation, or if you've got a staircase, you may consider adding more rooms, and adding more measurements, and we'll show you how to do that. The first entry, though, is flooring difference factor. This is the most confusing thing for people, and it's not that confusing if you just do it consistently and the same every single time. The flooring difference factor allows for us, and I've got a picture here of kind of a schematic. The flooring difference factor allows us to correct for different flooring types. It's a pretty understood concept that when a slab is poured, it's kind of poured flat. Besides the garage sunken areas or special areas where you've got showers or like a sunken living room or something, you have a flat foundation when it's poured or when it's constructed. When you add flooring, each flooring type adds a different flooring thickness to the foundation, and we have to correct for that thickness. We don't have to bring it back down to raw concrete, although sometimes we would if you got concrete floors, but we want to establish just a standard thickness that we're going to use for the whole home, and the way we do that is this flooring difference factor. The way that you take these measurements is you first take a measurement at the bottom of the flooring difference, of the bottom of the floor, the top of the floor, and then you will see what the factor is. We don't ask that you do math. We don't ask that you figure the factor, but we ask that you put it here in the right way. In this case, if you did measure a negative 0.2 on the first flooring type and a positive 0.3 on the second flooring type, then the flooring difference factor is 0.5. That looks like in the app, selecting here a different elevation. So I kind of skipped this a little bit, but if the flooring is the same from one room to the next, then the answer is same elevation. There's no difference in flooring. But if the flooring is different, like you're going from a tile room to a carpet room, or from a carpet room to a wood floor room, then you would hit different elevation. There are 3 photos that you take. You take one of the top, you take one of the bottom, and then you step back and you take a photo of the threshold or the location at which you took these photos. Usually the puck will be sitting on the top on the bottom, because you took a top photo, you took a bottom photo, and then you stepped back and you take a location photo. What does this actually look like? Well, that is a good question. This is a sunken room. Let's see. Sorry. This all has the same flooring. Here's where they answered same elevation. There's not, although there is a different flooring, they figured that the elevation was the same. Sorry, they just don't have a great example here. Okay, flooring difference, same elevation again. Well, let's just talk from it, because it's not too difficult to understand with a photo. Here's the tile, here's the wood. They're saying the two, when you say same elevation, you're not worried about different materials. You're wondering, are they on the same elevation? And if you're like, well, how do I know? We'll take your puck and put it on the top, put it on the bottom. If they're reading the same elevation, then we don't need to know about the fact that the material changed. We just need to know that the elevation didn't change from room to room. In this case, you would take an elevation on the tile. Let's assume the tile is higher. Take an elevation on the wood floor, and then step back and take this photo that shows the threshold and the change in the flooring type. So I'm sorry I don't have a better example. I don't want to keep scrolling and not find anything good. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we just want to know, again, when the threshold, when the actual flooring type changes. So take a picture of the top, take a picture of the bottom, the actual measurements, and then the location. Now we're in the room, and we are now, let's say we went from the entry to a dining room, and we did have a flooring change. Take a picture of the flooring change, top, bottom, and location, those measurements, and then we're going to take a photo, start with the actual photos of the room. In this case, we want to take, for an entry room, we want to take middle of the entry door and middle of the room. If you want to add a measurement, like, gosh, there's a fireplace in this entry, it's grandiose, you're going to hit add measurement, and then we'll add center of fireplace and click add, and it's going to add another measurement for you. You can add as many measurements as you want. If you want to give us 20 measurements in the entry, that's fine, but it starts to get to be a little bit much. Again, we'll show you in a next video kind of a grid layout of what we're kind of looking at, but we want to definitely focus on gathering the right amount of points to give us kind of a very uniform grid across the entire property. If you have any notes about this room, I was unable to access the back left corner because there is a couch in the way. Then let us know why you weren't able to gather a point. If you don't have, like, let's say you don't have this point, you can always just remove the point. So middle of entry, entry room has 2 points. Let's go into a different room, like living room. You'll see that we give you the actual likely points that you're going to take. But again, with a living room, especially a living room, it's very hard to know. If this is a tiny living room, then you may only need 4 points. If it doesn't have a fireplace, like we actually call out front of fireplace, then we're going to delete this point because there's no fireplace. There's no point capturing a fireplace photo. So again, with living room, let's just go over flooring difference factor one more time. Either when you walk from the entry or the room you were in before into the living room, are you changing flooring? If you are, then indicate different elevation. Take a picture of the top, bottom, and location to give us that flooring difference factor, or indicate that everything's good, it's the same elevation. Again, we don't care about flooring changes if they're the same elevation. So if you go from wood to tile and there's no elevation change, they're on the same plane, then hit same elevation to move on. With regard to the points, so for a living room, back left, back right, front left, front right, you're kind of getting the theme that every room we want to capture the four corners of that room typically. And then for larger rooms, we want to capture the middle of the room or very specific things that that may weigh on the foundation. Or, you know, if you walk into the most grandiose living room that you've ever seen on a $1 billion home, then you may want to capture 9 or 10 points instead of just the 6 that we've specified here. So use your judgment. Also, one note, and I in fact saw it in here, is that if you have a rug in the middle of the living room, you can't just take a measurement on the middle of the rug. I don't think, of course, I can't find it. Oh, there's the living room. Are we going to see it? Right here. You can't just put a puck on the rug and then take it like it's the same as if it's sitting on the raw floor. So you have to use a little common sense here. You have to make sure that if you're taking a measurement, that we know that you're taking it. And if you want, you can specify in the notes a flooring difference factor for this rug. If you want to take the top and bottom measurements and do the adjustment, you can give us a note for this room. But in this case, I wouldn't have taken the measurement in the middle. I probably would have taken a measurements kind of around the rug, maybe one over here to account for what the rug may be doing. Maybe you pull the rug up and take the measurement and show us that. But you have to be cognizant of flooring difference changes so that we can account for that in our measurements. Otherwise, junk in, junk out. Okay, back to our rooms. Living room, kitchen, and nook. So we kind of do the kitchen and nook is the same. You'll notice these points are kind of different than back left, back right, etc. This is going to be front of the fridge, front of the range, front of the sink, front of the pantry. And typically in a kitchen, we want 4 points for the kitchen. And if there's like a little nook off to the side, we want 1 picture of the middle of the nook. The nook is not the dining room. So, dining room is another one. It will have 4 points. So the goal being that we want to establish a very uniform grid across the whole home. And I want to say this here. I'm going to say it in the next video, but the corners of the foundation are very important for us. We want to definitely capture those. So if you know that the kitchen is on the corner of the home, then you may add a point that's just corner, or you may add a point that says, back left corner of the nook, because I know that it's on the corner of the slab. So you can't just follow the specific points that we require or we by default request, because you will end up coming to a point where we'll give you feedback. We'll say, hey, we would have preferred if you had done X, Y, and Z. Some of the other rooms. So once you get through these rooms, you may say, well, gosh, Phil, there was 2 bedrooms downstairs. Do you not want the other bedroom? Well, no, we do. We have to gather all the points on the foundation elevation of the home. We're not going to gather elevation points on the second story. We're not going to gather elevation points in the basement floor, on the basement floor. We're concerned with the primary elevation of the portion of the foundation that we're evaluating for tilt and deflection. And so we're concerned only with those rooms, but we have to have all of those rooms. So you need to walk through every room, make sure you gather all of the elevations. And if you need to add a room, you click add a room. Now you can add a second, like if this has 2 living rooms, you would add 2 living rooms, and you may change the actual name of the living room to be living room 1 and living room 2, or what do you call it? What do you call that? A den or something like that. But anyways, you also have these other room, small, normal, large, odd shaped. What we're giving you here is options for just a random, if you have a random bonus room, or if you want to start with just a room that's kind of weirdly shaped, that's odd, I would add room odd shape, 6 point. I'd come in here and then I see I have 6 points, and you can change the name of these points to be what you want. So this is kind of a way to customize this specific, customize the specific room to fit the nature of what you're going to be adding. So, and then if you need to change the name of this room, you hit rename room. Instead of saying room odd shape, you're going to say bonus room left, bonus room left or something. Hit save. And then you're going to, again, come into here and add all of the elements to a room. There are other rooms that are uncommon, like large hallways. Sometimes we have like really winding hallways, and you're going to want to shoot 1, 2, 3, 4 points down the hallway. A theater room, which is common, or an office, which is somewhat common. And so we've got all of the ability for you to add the rooms that you need to add. Okay, we have base stations done. We have rooms done. Now we've surveyed the entire property. We're pretty much done with our EFE. That's it. We're about to close out. We click back. Done, done, done. We're going to click finalize. It is going to run a validation, and I'm doing this kind of on purpose. It's going to tell me the things that I have left out that I have to actually answer. And so it's going to be things that are in project details, but also things that are in the elevation plot. And so you can go through and figure those out. I am going to do that real quick because I want to show you what it's going to look like. Sorry, what it's going to look like when you kind of publish it. And doop, 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 doop. Okay, and then I think it asks for the flooring difference factor of some of these. Kitchen and nook, same elevation, bonus room, same elevation. And I think that's it. So let's go back. We'll hit finalize. It probably will give me one more. Habitability and walls. So in structural systems in general is habitability. And then in walls, there's a common question that says wall material. Let's answer that one too. Okay, finalize. It's going to validate. It'll say, are you ready to finalize? We hit finalize, and then your report's been finalized. If you come back here, you'll notice that we're still in progress, and now this submit button is available, which wasn't before. That's because we've finalized the report, and we have attached our supporting documents if they're required. In this case, we did the visual condition assessment inside of this report section. So we can either delete this or we can leave it blank, but there are some of our services will put a little red star here on the support document side. A good example of that is the EIR. The engineer's inspection report doesn't have an actual report you give us. It only has a property inspection report that you're providing for us to give you feedback on. So you can't complete an EIR unless you give us your report. So that one would have a red star here, and you would have to upload it before you hit submit. Once you hit, and then we want you to give us some notes on this project. But once you hit submit, you'll notice that this will change to under review. This means now that it's in the bucket for me, the engineer, and my team to start performing, and you'll see a date here that it was submitted. You can go back in and change this, and there's no problem with that. All it's going to do is it's going to give us an update, basically says that you resubmitted something. And, if you submit something at noon and we start working on it, and then we get an email that you resubmitted changes or you changed elevation measurements or something like that, that's what we want to try to prevent. So, you can come back in here and attach, you know, a very common resubmittal will be, oh, you know, the agent just called and they have new support documents. And so they throw those in here. That's fine. You know, we'd rather have it than not have it, but just know that the goal is that when you hit submit, that we are then working on it. And if you throw a wrench right in the middle of our processing, then there may be a delay. There may be a call that we need to place to you to understand the change, things like that. So just try to get all the documents that you can, do the report the right way, submit it when you're actually done with it, and then only resubmit if it's just a total necessity and you get something or find out information that you can't, that you have to give us for the processing. The processing is not, it's not dependent on payment. So we're going to process it regardless. Again, you're a client, you're not a customer. We're not going to lock you from the report. Someday we might if you go, you know, 10 reports without paying us, but we're not going to lock you from any of that. And if you want to go in here and pay, you can. We also have an auto payment feature where once the report is completed, then you will get a charge to the credit card that you set up. And you can also see the PDF of the report. This is that EFE and what it looks like. So I won't go over it, but you would, because it's kind of junky, but you will see all of the information here that you submitted, so you can actually go over the report and see if it represents what you think you provided. If you want to add services later, you can always go to add services. You can add a DCR and it will add them down here to the active side, and it will have different requirements. The DCR is another example of something that doesn't have a report we need from you. It just has a support document that we need from you. So it would then say, hey, provide us your property inspection report so that we can do the costing on that report and then submit it. And then the timeline for that kind of starts separate of the timeline for this. Each of these services has a different timeline. And if you click back right here, you will see, if you click back here, you will see the EFE. It's now under review. If you add another service, it will add another line here and it will say DCR pending or DCR under review or DCR published. That's it for this video. I appreciate you. The next video will go into the very complicated elements of EFE. They're not super complicated, but when you go out to some of these odd situations like a townhome, or I mean like a multifamily complex or a sunken living room, we want you to be very familiar with how to handle these situations. And so we're going to teach you a little bit about the complexities of what you may run into with our EFE service. Thanks again. See you on the other end.